I'm going to show you why the justice system is rigged so you basically can't go to trial, even if you believe you're innocent and have a great case. So this person gets a complaint filed against them, which filed in 2023. This is the prosecutor who filed this, alleging ultimately these felonies. This basically came all the way from 2020 when the incidents actually occurred. This person was getting extra income from our DES, basically saying they were unemployed. Or if you recall, during this time of early COVID, there was a ton of extra financial assistance. So even if you had a job, but the work wasn't always there, you got furloughed, or the hours were off, or they unexpectedly closed, you were allowed to get extra help. So you're allowed to have a job and still get help, which is definitely the situation here. Except what these prosecutors, they say, we don't care. This is basically what this is saying. Here are the weeks that they went through, requested any of their financial assistance. This is how much money that they were saying that they were making that week. Did you have a job or were you working? Yes, 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 yes. This is how much money that you actually made when they go and do the audit. Looking at definitely the first few weeks here, they're saying no, they're not working, when in fact they actually did get some money. Well, if you recall, basically what was happening here is there was furlough, there was extra money being paid out if you actually didn't even work. So some employers were doing that. But basically what's really important here is this is a pay stub from actually weeks prior for this that comes into play here. So this person was not actually working, they were off, but they did receive $260 odd. Okay, so if anybody's doing some math, you're getting $260 is not going to hold you over for 2 weeks at all. It's not going to pay for rent, nothing. So definitely this person should be the ideal candidate for someone who should be eligible for any of the unemployment or the financial assistance during COVID. But here's the issue that the prosecutors pointed out, and they're basically charging this person with 16 plus felonies because every single time they said, yes, I was making money, this person reported about this much. So, $336, $156, $96, when in reality, how much they were making was this much. So they're definitely off by a couple $100 here, which is insane that these prosecutors are getting so serious about this over just a couple $100 being off. Look, I get it. It's not perfect and it doesn't have to be perfect. The law says it needs to be basically as accurate as possible, but not perfect. And this person, of course, isn't getting paychecks every week, just like they are writing over here. So it is hard to kind of divvy this up and say, well, how much of this hours went to that week and how many went to that week? Beside the fact this person is basically still so eligible because of how much money that they are making, it is incredibly difficult to live off that, plus to be able to support a family, plus pay rent, plus pay for food. I mean, shoot, the toilet paper shortage, if anybody remembers that. So this person should definitely be getting this money that they should be entitled to based on this. However, the freaking law says that if you say anything wrong here, then they can come back after you and get this money. So we push back on these prosecutors and we say, hey, look, we want to dismiss this case. Here's like the sweetest person in the world. There's no way they would have ever done anything wrong on purpose. By the way, this is just a really big misunderstanding. They were reporting less, but we're only off by a couple $100. They still would be eligible anyways. This prosecutor, of course, doesn't want to tell me everything in writing here because, they like to CYA themselves. Anyways, I basically say, look, we're going to fight against this because, look, a reasonable jury would understand that this person wasn't intentionally frauding anybody, wasn't intentionally making any mistakes here. And guess what these prosecutors do? The prosecutors basically go and try to lawyer us. They lawyer us because they then say, look, if you're going to try that, guess what we're going to do? What they're going to do is throw in the 703 allegation. 703 is a very special law here in Arizona. It's in a bunch of different states as well. We basically have laws that say, look, these crimes are so serious that no matter what, you're automatically going to go to prison. So if you have multiple offenses that were not committed on the same day, you're going to get prison no matter what. And kind of the theory behind this law was, look, if you go and, steal from somebody one day, and then you go and steal from somebody again a week later, and then you go rob a bank, a week after that, well, all those happen at different times. And so where you would normally be probation eligible because it's your first time committing a crime here, you're no longer probation eligible, you're going to go basically straight to prison. So we're looking at class 6 felonies here. These are, again, the lower level side of felonies in Arizona. The most minimum, if you went to trial and lost, would be 4 months of prison. The highest you could get from a judge would be 2 years, and the average sentence is 1 year. Sure, no judge in their right mind is probably going to be like, you're the worst thing in the world and go over here. More than likely, the judge is going to fall somewhere over here. Except, wait a second, you're also eligible to get probation based on these charges, except when the prosecutors go and threaten the 703 motion. And that's basically these prosecutors saying, we don't want you to go to trial, because if you do, you might win. And if you win, well, all that work we just put into this goes out the window. So we're basically going to make the punishment so hard on you that even if you lose on one of these, you're going to get 4 months of prison straight up, no way out of it, the end. And all of these other charges, again, you could 100% be right and you could fight against this. Well, guess what? All that needs to happen is they need to say that one of these was wrong, and then you're going to be found guilty about that. As you can see here, prosecutors like, this person stole $19,000. I mean, we have our federal government losing trillions of dollars in the military, and they're so concerned about this. They also are sitting here, taking the federal money from the federal government. Arizona is pocketing it and taking it and basically not paying it back, saying that the CARES Act lets them do that. And of course, the prosecutors here, they're saying that they're not going to dismiss this case. They don't have a heart for this client. They just are lump summing this person in there, saying that they stole all this money and there's no way out of it. And that's ultimately true. I mean, when you look at these sentencing charts and you have a plea deal sitting in front of you that says, all right, if I pay back this $19,000, I'm not going to go to jail, even though you and your family needed that $19,000 through one of the craziest times in U.S. history, COVID, they're basically 3 years down the road allowed to come back and take all that money back with interest, which isn't their fault. It's not their fault that the prosecutor waited 3 years to charge this case. And on top of that, they didn't give them notice that they did anything wrong. There was no checks and balances. You just get blindsided by this. And again, when people say it's reasonable to then go and have a trial with a jury of your peers and they'll understand this, the risk is so high. Nobody wants to do 120 days of prison in order to get found guilty of something that you really didn't think you were guilty. And now you're for sure losing your job. You're losing your family. You're definitely losing your house if you can't pay for it. And that's why most people take plea deals, even if you're innocent, even if you truly believe you're innocent. And again, this person's like 99% innocent. They just made a slight error every single time they said how much money they were making. And these prosecutors said, we don't care. We're taking this back and we're charging you. And you're facing a dozen plus felonies here. And there's no way out of it unless you go to trial. And that's it. And again, if you want to hardball this and try and go to trial, boom, we're going to slap the law against you, because these laws were set out to get true criminals, but they're used against all these other, truly good and innocent people in order to get you caught and trapped into the justice system. It's crazy here, and this is why it's really impossible to go to trial when the stakes are so high.